Hey guys, it's Mike and welcome to Mike's Rock and Relics. Today on the show we're going to talk about the rock and roll records of the 1950s. This is going to be my favorite records from the 1950s that are in my collection, and I think essentials for yours if you're looking to add some of this era to your collection. These are ones I would recommend and pick. And let's remember, when we talk about the 50s, really in the rock and roll genre, we're really only talking 1955 to 1959 here. So there's only a 4-year window of all of this great music coming out, and some of these legendary and pioneering artists. So on today's show, we're going to talk about that. This is the era of the single as well. So to find LPs is a little bit tricky sometimes, and they don't always have the big single on it because they were kind of where the leftover songs went. But still, this is going to be the ones that I would recommend you add to your collection, and I hope you enjoy my list. A little, I guess, advance notice here. There's some artists I don't have LPs for. One would be Jerry Lee Lewis. I only have singles on the Sun label for him. The Johnny Burnett Rock and Roll Trio as well. I'd love to find that record. I never have, but I do have 45s of theirs. And, some of these artists like that where you have, Carl Perkins is another one. I don't have his actual record. I just have singles from that era. But the singles were the big deal at the time and what people were buying up and listening to most. And records were very expensive. Much like now. It's kind of how things are working now. But the idea of the long-playing record was something that in the late 60s became more of a thing than at this point in rock history. So I hope you enjoy my list. If there's anybody I missed, let me know. But these are some of my favorite and essential artists and records from the 1950s. Enjoy. Okay, up first on my list of essential 50s records is Chuck Berry. Berry is on top, and this one is a little bit of a compilation, I think. But Johnny B. Good and Carol and Maybelline, Sweet Little Rock and Rollers on here, Little Queenie. There's a lot of good material on here, and anything Chuck Berry is essential, but this is definitely one to find and to add to your list. It's on the Chess Records label, and that is a good one to have on any list, that's for sure. Up next, in Canada, this is Johnny Cash's first album. In the US, this came out, I think it was called his Hot and Blue Guitar, and has a different cover than this, but this is the original Johnny Cash debut record here in Canada, and it has this pink border to it, and it's on the I think in Canada it came out on the London label, but pretty interesting. It has the Sun Records thing down here, but that is one to definitely add to your collection. It's a great first offering from Johnny. Here is Eddie Cochran. This is a reissue. This is a greatest hits compilation. Eddie Cochran's original stuff is pretty difficult to track down, but this is a nice compilation because it has all the singles on there. It's a double LP, so there's a lot of songs on here, and it's a good list. There's everything you need is on that one. So that is, I think that came out in 1971, but that is definitely one for 50s recordings that I would recommend. Eddie Cochran is a must-have. Okay, Bo Diddley by Bo Diddley. This is on Chess Checker, and definitely one to add to your collection if you can track that one down. Bo Diddley's original stuff, so uniquely interesting. And most records from that era in Canada came out on what was known as Quality Records. And Quality Records was a label that kind of was a subsidiary for representation of all the U.S. labels in Canada. And it was a label that would be the distribution for these labels up here. So most records, if you got them in Canada, were a Quality Record. That was basically how things worked back then. And the last one in this little stack is Lonnie Donegan, My Old Man's a Dustman. This is UK pressing. Lonnie Donegan took music from New Orleans and the South in the U.S. and brought it to England and kind of made himself a name. Big time musician. He sort of invented this, or I guess not invented, but brought the skiffle genre back, and in the 1950s in England that was a huge craze, and a lot of the musicians that made it big in the 60s started out in the skiffle bands in the 50s, and this was a must-have record. Lonnie Donegan, My Old Man's a Dustman. So I think everybody needs some sort of Fats Domino compilation. I like this one from the mid-70s. I don't have any. I used to have Fats Domino studio recordings, like LPs from the 50s, but really for me it's kind of, if you get the best of or some sort of package, that's probably the way to go with his, just because he had so many good hits and they're spread out. He sold a lot of records in the 50s. I'm not sure anybody sold more than Fats Domino in the 50s. He was very, very important. This is a great record, 1958, the Everly Brothers. This is their debut record, and it's a little bit hard to track down, but really, really worth the listen. And this one's on Apex. Just a great record there. So that is the Everly Brothers. You need that in your collection as well, for sure. Here is a strange one. This is an album called Let's Go Rock and Roll. And to me, if there was a cover that summed up 50s rock and roll, this would be it. And this is Hen Gates and His Gators. And it's an instrumental record. It sounds very 50s. The cover, to me, is just, it's perfect. That is 1950s rock and roll right there. And everything about this record is perfect for the era. I do know it had another cover, too, and I can't remember what it looked like, but there is another cover, but I like this one better. And this one came out on Master Seal, which is a label I don't know. But this is to me, one of the most quintessentially 50s records you can find. Hen Gates and His Gators, and Let's All Dance to Rock and Roll. Perfect. That one you have to have in your collection. Okay, here's one that kind of started it all. This is Bill Haley and his Comets and Rockin' Around the Clock. This I've talked about on my channel before. This tear on this record. This one was in the riots in Britain when he tried to play there in the late 1950s, and this is a UK pressing of that record. It's pretty important. So find the video on my channel where I talk about this, and you can hear the whole story of how this happened. But this is an original Bill Haley and his Comets, and you know, Bill was right ahead of Elvis and one of the first to tour with rock and roll, and certainly to go overseas and to play. Big time rock star in the mid 1950s. So that's Bill Haley and Rock Around the Clock. Gotta like that. Okay, up next we have this. You know, this kind of isn't just 1950s, and it's a bit country, I guess. But I think Hank Williams' "Moanin' the Blues" is definitely one to have in your collection from this sort of early rock and roll, early country era. Here's one that is much like Fats Domino. I do, you know, need to have this in my collection, but I don't have his original record. But this is Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. There's the original 78 for Bebop-A-Lula that's sitting in that sleeve as well. But the Blue Caps were an important band, you know, in 1956. They were really necessary and needed, and the Capitol label were looking for a rock star at that time, and they found Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps, and they had the right look and they had the right sound, and yeah, you need some Gene Vincent in your collection, that's for sure. Up next, Ritchie Valens, La Bamba, and this is his LP that came out before he passed away, but definitely one to keep an eye out for, and an important record. I hope I haven't picked one from the wrong era here. I was just going through records, and I think this is a 50s record. But if it's early 60s, sorry about that. This is Marty Robbins' Gunfighter Ballads, and definitely a quintessential album of that era. Great cover, and El Paso is on here. That was a big hit for him. Okay, if there was a record cover that really just launched 1,000 bands, it was this one. Elvis's debut on RCA Victor. And what a great record this is, and just all the energy and what Elvis was is captured here on this cover. Just fantastic. I love this record. Definitely one to have in your collection. Okay, up next, this is a Ricky Nelson record from the UK. But in behind here, I also have his best of. And so you need some Rick Nelson, though, because of, you know, the stuff that he put together. So many great songs, including Hello Mary Lou and Lonesome Town and Travelin' Man, and just amazing stuff on here. And James Burton on guitar on a lot of that stuff. So just must-have stuff for that 50s era. Ricky Nelson. Up next, Little Richard. And here's Little Richard. And this is the guy that really did invent rock and roll, I think. I think he's the guy that, he was the template. He was first, and everybody else kind of took what he was doing and made it their own thing. But this one is certainly one to try and track down and find, and this is a key record for any 50s collection. Little Richard. Another important record from the 50s, Buddy Holly and the Chirpin' Crickets. And I love this cover because it's got Buddy's Strat on here in color, and you know, you get that tobacco finished Strat and the Crickets, and here we are, everything coming together to be what they were, a legendary rock and roll band. So this is certainly a hard one to track down, but it's a great record to have, and one that would make any list complete for sure. Okay, here's a Canadian guy that some of you might not know much about, but this is Ronnie Hawkins, Mr. Dynamo. And Ronnie Hawkins, his backing band on this is the Hawks. The Hawks eventually would become Bob Dylan's backing band, and then just the band. So this is Robbie Robertson and Rick Danko and Levon Helm and guys like that. So the Hawks were an important band, but Ronnie Hawkins was pretty important to Canadian music and establishing rock and roll here in the city of Toronto. So that is a good record to find. It's on the Roulette label, and if you do a little research on that label, you'll see it was owned by the Mafia. It's a pretty interesting story on that as well. So check out Ronnie Hawkins if you get the chance. He's got 2 records out from that era. And the last one is a reissue, because I've never found the original, but this thing just rocks. Dale Hawkins, Oh, Susie Q. That's the original Susie Q, and it's the best one, by the way. And if you check out a lot of his stuff, it's on the Checker label, and it is really ahead of its time rock and roll from the late 1950s. So definitely somebody to certainly kind of keep an eye out for. This record is really hard to find. That's why I've got the reissue. Even the reissue is hard to find. But important artists from that era. And one more I dug out there that you should have in your collection for 50 stuff is Dwayne Eddy. Have Twangy Guitar Will Travel, and the instrumental guys like Link Ray and Dwayne Eddy. I only have Link Ray's stuff. I have Rumble on a 45, but I don't have the his LP. So the instrumental guy is so important for the creation that would become surf rock and things like that. So pretty important stuff, and I think you need to have that in your collection as well. So there you go. That is some of the records that I think are important and that you should have in your collection to represent the era of the 1950s. Not every record that was a hit in the 50s was a rock and roll record, but those are the ones that to me are pioneering artists and that did work that would influence the generation that came after them quite a bit. So those are ones that I think are a nice representation of the era, and ones that you should have in your collection as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if there's anybody I missed, or if there's anything that I could have added to that list that wasn't there. So enjoy that, and we'll see you next time here on Mike's Rock and Relics. Thanks for watching.